Welcome to What We Made Possible, the podcast where we explore the power of healing and driving change for advocates, leaders, and change makers. The conversations here draw the connection between creating new possibilities in the world, possibilities of care, of belonging, of thriving for our communities, with stories of personal healing and loving relationship building. I'm your host, Patty Dayleg, leadership coach for social change. I spent a decade in nonprofits, government, and DEI, securing 6- and 7-figure opportunities for communities of color. And I've experienced firsthand the transformative power of compassion, healing, and belonging in making a bigger impact. Let's dive in. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to What We Made Possible. Today's a little bit different. So you might hear in my voice that I am recovering from a little bit of a cold or flu or, I don't know, allergies, something that is causing a little bit of a tickle in my throat. So my editor will probably take out the coughs, but you'll hear a little something in my throat. So that's one reason why it's different. The other reason why it's different is because I want to experiment a little bit. So, you know that I have been in a coaching certification. I am learning how to coach through the lens of systems, right? Relationships, organizations. I've been working on this for over a year now, but now that I'm in the certification and just like going so deep into all of the frameworks, I'm like, how can I like continue to unpack this and continue to learn? So, we're learning in real time together. And so what we're going to do is we're going to read a Reddit post together. I'm going to read it to you and then I'm going to look at it through the lens of systems coaching. So like if this family from this Reddit post came to me with this problem. And I've done episodes in the past on, if someone came to me for coaching, a celebrity or a fictional character. And so now I'm looking at a real family, or at least a real Reddit post, and a real situation that someone is asking for advice on. So if you're new here, if this is the first time you're listening to me talk about this, ORSC, ORSC, it stands for Organization and Relationship Systems Coaching. It's a framework that I am integrating into my work where the client is not the individual, but it's the team, it's the family, it's the organization. And so what that means is when there's something that feels stuck, like when there's a challenge, right? There's something painful or confusing or, whatever it is, we get curious about what the system is trying to say, what's trying to happen in the system, not what is happening at the individual level. So today's story or, challenge comes from the subreddit advice, so r/advice. And it's about a family business and succession. And on the surface, it looks like a story about a kid who doesn't want to take over their parents' shop. But when you read it, there's something a lot bigger, right? There's this like family and this business that are under pressure. And the parts of the system, the parts of the family, the parts of the business have not yet found a way to hear each other. And so it's this instance where in family, love and obligation got really tangled up, and you can't quite tell them apart. That's not abnormal, right? The person who wrote this, they mentioned that they have a mental health crisis. They have had a mental health crisis. Content warning for that. It might have been like the most honest thing that the system ever produced, right? This relationship system. And the people around it, around this crisis, they don't really have language for it yet. So I'm going to read the post and then I want to invite you as you listen, just like notice, right? What do you feel? Who do you feel for? What lands? What feels familiar to you? And then we'll do some analysis. Okay. So this is from our advice. And the title of the post is Being Forced to Take Over Parents' Business and Want to Decide on My Own. My parents keep telling me to take over their business, but I don't have an interest in the slightest and dislike it very much. Their business is just selling spring rolls and some boba tea and claimed it is a dream job. Everybody wants to have it. I've already studied some web development skills and have a degree in IT, but my parents don't believe I succeed since I got a mental breakdown in which I fell into depression. My parents weren't supportive of my condition and they basically neglected me. On top of that, they would tell me that if I don't take over their business, then I would be homeless and would be nothing. This upsets me very much and feel pretty helpless about it. It causes me to hate their business even more. Also, my siblings got support from my parents since they saw they succeeded in what they want to do. Because of this, my recovering for a mental health condition took a lot longer to heal than it was supposed to. I want to continue on what I was studying before and already decided on it, but my parents want me to put work into their business very soon. If there are any ideas, plans, or options from here that I could do, then I will be very pleased to hear it because taking over their business is the last thing that I want to do. Ooh. You can like feel the helplessness and the like frustration and the anger and the how unfair this feels for this person, but you can just like feel like they're like grasping for anything that can help. That word helpless, right? Like this person, they have degrees, they have skills, they have a direction where they want to go, but they can't access any of that in the system. The thing that like really attracted me to this post in particular was obviously the idea of succession, right? It's like a thing that I've been thinking about for myself. It's a thing that I've been coaching on with folks. But like there's a real reality that not every family is going to pass their business on to the next generation, right? That in order for that to succeed, in order for that to happen in a way that is meaningful to both the parents or, both the first gen and the second gen, there has to be agency on both sides, right? There has to be a desire and a want to do that and not from just like forcing, right? Like or being pressured into it. I'll also say that what I notice is that the parents are obviously entirely absent from this story as full people, right? Like this is from the child's perspective, and we get what the poster experienced from them, but we also don't get who they are or what they're carrying. As a systems coach, that's a thing that I would absolutely be curious about, right? Like, what are they afraid of? What does this business mean to them? What would it take for them to just like hear each other? You know what I mean? Because like if they do hear each other, then like who knows? Maybe one of these kids, they said multiple siblings, right? Like maybe one of them does want to take over. But also maybe the parents don't, this wasn't part of the conversation, but like, or part of the post, but I wonder if because of this particular child's, mental health challenge, that it feels like the safe thing. Whereas the other siblings, like they were able to do their thing, they were able to go to school and like have their own careers, their parents supported them. They didn't need quote unquote this option because they created that for themselves. I wonder if from the parents' perspective, they're like, well, this is for you. You know what I mean? And if you don't have this, then like what's gonna happen for you? And it there's this belief that I hold as a coach, which is that like every act in relationship, and I say this with a huge asterisk, every act is an act of love or an ask of love. So if we were just to like hold that for a second and like apply that to this, how could the parents' pressure to this child to take over the business, how could that be a request for love or how could it be an act of love, right? And so based on the language that they use, it sounds like they didn't do it very skillfully. But they're saying, like, we love you, and if you take over our business, then you'll have a career. Let's get into the framework, right? Like the ORS piece, the systems coaching piece, because this post is genuinely like such rich territory, right, for systems work. I want to name three things that I see here. And I'm gonna be really careful to say, right? Like, I don't know this family. I wasn't in the room. Like, they didn't give me consent to coach them, right? But I'm saying, like, if this family came to me for coaching, I can name some of the patterns that I have seen and that I'm learning about. And so this ORS just gives like really useful language for it, you know? And so I want to share that today. So the first is I want to name something that we work with a lot, which is alignment. Specifically, this idea of making a problem something that is that like we all are approaching together and not a thing that is between us, right? So, like a problem that's in front of us rather than between us. So right now in this family, the business succession question is like lodged between the poster and their parents. It's become this like relationship wound, right? Every conversation about it is also probably a conversation about love, about loyalty, about who got supported, who didn't. It's a question about like what this person's mental health crisis meant, right? And so when a problem lives between people like that, it's almost impossible to solve because solving it feels like you have something to lose, right? It's one or the other. Like one person loses, it's win lose or even lose lose. What I would offer is for this family to like externalize it, right? To put the question out from between them to put it on the table in front of them where they can look at it together, right? So like asking, what does this business actually need to thrive into the next generation, regardless of who's in it, right? Like what does the business need? And then separately, what does the family need? Right? Those are 2 different it's the same system because it's the same people, but it's different roles happening and, like, different sides of the system. And then like, again, with roles, right? Like, what does each part of the family, each person, each role need in order to feel like their life is their own, right? Like, I mentioned agency earlier. Like, how can everyone have choice in this, right? These are questions that this family could actually wrestle with and work through if they could get the problem out from between them, right? So that's the first move is like, how do we do this together and look at the problem as something we are solving that is like separate from us and not between us? The second thing, and this one is close to my heart, is the idea of the symptom as a signal. So this is where I really want to lean into something that is foundational about like not just systems coaching, but like myself as a coach and what I believe, which is that systems, relationships are inherently wise, and we as humans are inherently wise. And so in the system, it's always communicating, always moving towards something, like something is trying to happen, right? And so, like things like conflict is not a problem, it's a signal that something needs to change, right? It's information, it's data. So, in systems coaching, we pay close attention to what we call the system's dream, the things that are trying to emerge or to be said or to be changed or just that are trying to happen. Like what's trying to happen in the system that doesn't have like, I don't know, a sanctioned channel yet. And sometimes those things come out sideways, right? Like I said, conflict, illness, burnout, what this post said, right? Mental health crisis. This is similar to what you would learn in like parts work, right? Like there's no bad parts. So this poster, right, they said they had a breakdown, that's their language. And then the parents' response was to see that as evidence that they couldn't succeed. But what if the breakdown, right, this crisis, this mental health crisis, was actually the system's most honest moment? What if it was the poster's nervous system saying out loud what nobody else in the family was allowed to say? This isn't working. Something has to change, right? And so what's painful here is that the breakdown, again, this crisis, carried real information the system needed, but nobody had the ears for it yet, right? And so when a system's signals go unheard, they tend to grow louder until someone can hear. I'm going to read again the part around the mental health piece. My parents don't believe I succeed since I got a mental breakdown which I fell into depression. My parents weren't supportive of my condition and they basically neglected me. And then later on they said because of this my recovering from my mental health condition took a lot longer to heal than it was supposed to. So this signal was like blaring and no one heard it, right? So as a systems coach, it's not my job ever to pathologize, to diagnose, any of that, right? Like that's the role of a therapist. But for me as a coach and helping a system to move forward and helping the system to figure out, to like uncover what's happening and to process it and see what information is there in order to kind of move forward. The question is like what's the information here, right? Like if this mental health crisis had something to say to this family, what would it say? Yeah, this one is it's really challenging, right? And also if I am still to hold that this family is inherently wise. This family system is inherently wise. It's trying to move towards something. This is telling me that there is something in this family system, potentially, that wants to shift. Again, like very different and not something that I would touch from like a therapeutic lens because I'm just not a therapist, right? Like there's none of that there. But there's something about like this person was unwell, they felt unsupported, and then their recovery took really long. And it's connected to the business. So like what is it trying to communicate to us or to the family, to that business about the needs of its parts? That's all I'll say. The third thing that I want to talk about here is rank and kind of like hierarchy, right? Power, the idea of power. And I want to be careful here because it's not necessarily like a problem to be solved, right? Like power, I will say, like, I come from a DEI background and I think about power frameworks as in like power over versus like power with, power within, power to. Maybe I'll talk about this more in like another episode. So yeah, I have this analysis of power, but also within this particular system, it's not like necessarily a problem to be solved. We can look at rank here as a way to navigate roles skillfully. So every system has rank, right? There's like parental rank. There's like socially, we are socialized that there's parental rank, right? Like parents have power over children. That's just how we are socialized. And I know there's a movement towards like power with, right? Power with your children, not power over, and like breaking down that hierarchy. But, I want to acknowledge that while also saying that, like, in this particular system, there's obviously parental rank, there's financial rank, there's rank and power in terms of like who built something, who's having careers, who's not having careers. There's a hierarchy in terms of ability, right? Like mental wellness, right? And so all of that lives here with the parents and with the child. And right now, it sounds like it's not necessarily being used in a way that's serving the system. And so it hasn't necessarily been made conscious yet or intentional yet. So, what would it look like if I was a coach? I'd be like, what would it look like to the parents if the parents could say, I have a lot of power in the situation and I want to use it to give you more options and not fewer. And what if the person who built the business used their rank to not bind their child to a particular outcome, right? That's rank being used in service of the whole system. And the child has rank too, right? Like, the child has power too, from being the one with IT skills, the one who can see a future the parents can't imagine yet. This They don't mention immigration status, but I'm gonna imagine that this is, the parents are immigrants and that the child is second gen. And that's a very real thing, right? Like, parents, immigrant parents who open businesses very much are in survival mode. And they are focused on just like financial safety in order to continue to survive. I'm assuming this is in the United States as well, right? And so, what if, like, that imagining this like dream of this person had more of like presence in this system, right? Like, what if that could be a resource that the family could draw on rather than a threat to what they've built? On the other hand, for the child, right? Like, what would it look like to say yes to taking over the business? They said they don't want that. And so as a coach, I wouldn't force a desire, but I will ask to entertain the possibility. Like, what would that be like? Just to see, you know? And you can throw it away if you don't like the vision. It's worth asking the question. So yeah, in systems coaching, I think we'd want to help this family see all the roles that they're holding, right? Like, and all of the ways that those roles interact in terms of power. So some roles: parent, founder, operator, child, successor, sibling, visionary, protector, dreamer, community member, right? There's so many roles here. And so, yeah, how do these roles actually work together? What do they have to offer each other? And also, how can these roles be inhabited more skillfully, right? Like, let's say, like, based off of this reading, if I'm to give the most generous reading of what the parents are wanting and the role that they are inhabiting, it is protector. And how do they do that in a way that is more skillful, right? In a way that is not read as being dismissive or being neglectful, right? Like, how do they actually fulfill the role of protector more skillfully? For the child, how do they, like, the thing that they want is to do their own thing. They want to continue studying, they want to go into their own field. And so they're in this role of dreaming, of visioning, of change, right? Like, they are moving towards something different. And so, how could they do that skillfully? And what's that role within the family? Ooh, that's tough, because I would want to see and help this family see all the roles that they're holding and how these roles interact in terms of power, right? So if the parents are holding this, let's say, role of protector of the business and protector of the child, right? If I hold my most generous reading of the parents, then how can they do that more skillfully? And then for the child, wanting to do their own thing, wanting to do, like, continue studying, wanting to go into IT, wanting to not succeed their parents, how could they fulfill that role of visionary, right? Like, of this person who's like dreaming something else different than the business. How could they hold that role within the family and within the system even more skillfully, right? So yeah, and like, how the power and the rank of protector and visionary, like, how can they talk to each other in a way that they can hear, and in a way that both of those roles are fulfilled within the system. So yeah, a business that is being handed forward with intention, with care, with a lot of the things that I talk about, is one that gets to draw on everyone's gifts, but only if everyone wants to do it, right? So yeah, that it's a very different picture than what's happening right now. But I really feel for this family, and this would take a lot of hearing out, would take a lot of uncovering. There's a lot unsaid here, obviously. Um, but I really feel for them. All right. So before I let you go, I want to leave you with a few questions, just things to sit with, very much in the spirit of systems work, right? We're here to notice, to get curious, not attached to any outcome, right? Like if I'm focusing a lot on succession, but that's not necessarily the outcome, right? That's not necessarily the ideal outcome for any given family. It's just like the thing that we are sitting with, right? So the questions that I want to offer are, where in your own life is a role being assigned, right? It doesn't have to be a family business. It could be a job title that doesn't fit who you actually are, or a position in your family that you stepped into so long ago that you forgot it was a choice, right? A leadership role that looks right on paper, but it costs you more than you have to offer, right? What are you being asked for in that role? And where are you being asked to inhabit in a role or inhabit a role that you are resisting? So that's one question for you. Second is, in your relationship systems, who is or where is there information that no one's reading as information? It's almost never the person who seems fine, right? The one who's like struggling, who's acting out, can't get it together, like the black sheep person. They're often the one carrying the truth about a system that the system hasn't figured out a way to express yet. So yeah, what would it mean to get curious instead of just concerned, right? There's a difference. Like, what is that trying to say? And then the last one. So this is for anyone who recognized themselves in the parents, right? Not just the poster, not the person that posted on Reddit. So if any part of you is identifying with the parents, what are you holding on to? And what are you afraid will happen? What are you afraid of happening if you let it go? Because so much of what looks like control in a system is actually grief that hasn't been named yet. And the parents in this post are not villains, right? They're people who built something. They're people who built this shop enough that they can pass it on to the next generation. And it is totally valid if they're terrified of what that means if it doesn't continue, right? That fear deserves compassion too. It also deserves to be seen clearly, right? And then for them, like, what if they're trying to protect their kid from something, right? Like, protect their kid from this mental health challenge by saying that the business is the solution, right? Like, what does that mean? To say that, like, an external thing is a solution for a family challenge or a mental health challenge. Ooh, so heavy episode. My throat is killing me. Thanks for listening. If you heard something in today's post that felt familiar or uncomfortable or something that you have been circling for a little while, I'd love to hear about it. If you are navigating succession, if you are navigating family business stuff, if you're navigating any intergenerational stuff, I've been working with a lot of organizations with family nonprofit orgs where families are running it. The parent is the executive director and someone else in the family is program manager or something like that. This kind of stuff happens in nonprofits too. So, if you are navigating that, then let's talk about coaching. I'm offering pro bono coaching at this moment, and I'm bartering while I'm in my coaching certification, especially for those who typically cannot access coaching. So there's a link in the show notes to book a call with me, a discovery call. For I'm calling it team coaching at this moment. I'm also supporting folks on private coaching. I just had a call with someone today who was interested in private coaching. Or if you have a Reddit post you think that would be good for me to look at, feel free to send it my way. You can send that to me on LinkedIn or Instagram, and those links should be in the show notes as well. And then to the person who wrote this post, wherever you are, thank you. I hope you're okay. You put something very real out into the world looking for help. I hope some version of this finds you and your mental health breakdown was something that was a signal that your family is looking for something different, is seeking something different. So I hope you get to find that. I hope you get to build the life that's yours and that your family finds a way to see that as something to celebrate. And I hope the family business does okay as well. All right, y'all. Until next time, thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to What We Made Possible. I really hope this episode resonated. As a coach, I always end with action steps, and so I invite you to do something, which is to pause and ask yourself, what resonated? What am I taking away? And what's possible for me and my community now? If you liked this conversation, please leave a review and a rating. It helps so much. Thanks again.